Another technique that's important and usually comes when your trees are on a bit more mature. Eventually you'll get to a point where you've created a good structure in your tree, and now you actually can get into the finicky stuff of actually thinking about where the fruit is going to hang. So the first thing to think about when you're thinking about thinning for fruit production is where is the fruit actually going to hang. And so I've got this fake branch here, or a real branch in the wrong position. So maybe maybe you've got some space like this, and there's enough room. This is a bit tight, but you can imagine with me. I'll actually go through and I'll look and I'll think, where is this pear going to hang, right? And these are young clusters, but as they get bigger, they grow out, especially on pears, and they start looking like this claw-like, I think of them as brain coral, or like a cauliflower mushroom. They're so intricate and so intense, but they'll just grow on top of each other, and there's actually no room for the fruit to hang. So the first thing I do is when I'm thinking about where is my fruit actually going to hang, if I've got scenarios like this here, well, I've got a branch that's competing and I want to keep it because it's got some other benefit that I'm working on. I will actually literally think, if I have a pear here and I know that pears are going to be, the size of a baseball, so they might be this big, where is this going to hang? And if it hangs onto this branch here, that means that this one is going to knock off that one, and so I don't have two pears here, I have no pears. So I want to thin one of the two of them away. So in this scenario, what I'd probably do is I'd thin out this one, because not only is it going to potentially bang into there if I leave it, but if I thin this away, it can still bang into this branch. So I'll move that one. And this pear now, it has a lovely place to hang. So that's one thing to think about spur thinning. Right here, we have a scenario where we've got 1, 2, 3, right? And maybe a fourth hanging here. So this is getting a little bit closer to your cluster formations. And what I want to do is I want to actually thin it out so that there's space for those to hang. So again, imagining a pear hanging here, a pear hanging here. That's not ideal. A pear hanging here, a pear hanging here. Well, they're not exactly ideal, but I'd rather have these two scenarios with that pear and this pear than one hanging into this and knocking those off. But actually, because of this, I'll take that one out as well. So I want my one pear to hang. Same over here. I probably have enough room given the stem length for here, here, and here, but I'll take that one out to know that I've got 1 and 2. Another thing when you're looking at spurs, these are a little younger, but pears will have bigger and smaller buds. So ideally you want to leave your king bud, your fat big bud, because it'll give you a bigger pear. And then if you have to make that choice and you can see that and you've got multiples, you can nick out the other smaller ones. Like in this scenario here, I can just take this smaller bud, just knock it off, and I'll have this big fat bud. That'll give me a nice pear to hang here. Now, another situation is like where I'm trying to terminate a branch. So using my experimental branch again, if again my body is the trunk of the tree, and say that I've got branches around here and I don't want a huge branch going through here, classically people would just head it, but I'll still get a bunch of branching on each side. What I'd rather do is have like a tight, strong branch within a foot of my tree to just hang fruit. And so I'll look for a fruit bud that's hanging fruit in a direction that I like, and I'll just terminate that cut right across the top and thin out the top. Now this is a bud, there's one here, and there's one here, right? And so this short little branch can hold 4 pears, and say it's on the actual tree. You could have 4 pears close to a tree like that in a good space, and there's room for each one of those to hang. And by making that cut at the end here, there is no other bud for it to push out a new shoot immediately. It can create a bud later in the season, but that takes time. And so it might decide, I do want to have another shoot there, and out of the collar you get a new bud. But instead of doing it right now, as soon as it starts waking up, it'll take 2-3 months to develop that bud, and so you'll only get a short little stick there, which then say I could head at that point and get another little branching and hang some more fruit on it. And then the last thing to do, this is more of a description, we've showed you the cuts, but with spur thinning, when you're going through thinking about where that fruit is going to hang, you also want to think about, you know, if it's too close, they're going to knock each other off. But also, you don't want your tree to be over-pollinated, right? There's not a ton of trees in this location, but if you had a lot of one or two type of trees and they're heavily flowered, you have that many bees going to so many extra flowers. And it often takes multiple times for a bee to visit a flower to get it fully pollinated. If you spread those bees and you don't have a great situation here where there's a wild forest nearby and there's a lot of native pollinators in the forest that are going to come visit, if you don't have that advantage, you're going to spread all over, you're going to get partially pollinated fruit, and you're going to get less fruit overall, which is going to waste your season. So one is to thin out, take away some of the smaller pollinated stuff, fruit thinning. But this is also why I like spur thinning when you're doing it. I'll just take away some of those flower buds to leave less flowers overall, so the bees do the pollination and hit the ones that we want and get the biggest amount of fruit possible.